EP collab, man. Oakland Vallejo, the Bay Area, stand up. I'm from that town. She from Vallejo. Said let's collab. She said okay. We all should play. Hot potato. Whoever got the hottest ball. Challenge accepted. It's me, I'm the best. Like creative players on hunters, no less. The lines in your forehead just told me you stressing. Got G-O-D on me side. Ooh, he blessed me. All the lies they tell it's a vaccine. They're acting it's so bad like it's wrestling. Keep my circle so small it's insane. If you made the cut, then you're part of my team. Just like blowing that plank, all strikes don't gutter. Attracted to the mind, but I like mine's hooder. She gotta have a pretty face too.
Hi. Welcome to the channel, you guys. I am Mrs. Best. We have renowned, fabulous author of a book that I'm mad that my husband is telling me too much about, James Jackson. I read the book when it first came out, haven't read it since. So I'm like, I need a refresher. But at every chapter of Fraternity Wrote the Pledge, which is the book, y'all, my husband, he's very picky with reading, was stuck on that book. He finished it faster than any book he's read. So shout out to James Jackson.
Wow, that is amazing. Shout out to Mr. Best. Shout out to my brother. Like, I cannot believe that.
I love it. You were the first novel that he has read since The Coldest Winter Ever, and he said he read that in 2006. So like, look at that. Anywho, you guys, we also want to say to James a happy belated birthday. This is the sign that we had up before, but he wasn't here on that day. And honestly, I know James, and he did not feel like he was missing out when it comes to that Love and Hip Hop Live, because I was mad that I had to be there. So happy birthday again to our fabulous co-host. I appreciate your opinions, your mind, your intellect, and all that you do also off of the camera. So I just wanted to give you your love. It's not over until the month is over. God damn it. Anywho, you guys, we're going to jump into it. We're here to go over the Never Ever METS. We are going to be going over the episode. It's complicated. IRL is in real life. For those who may not know what these little acronyms mean, this is the second episode of the first season. James was right. He texted me while I was watching the episode, and he says to me, Sienna's not safe. I was like, at first I was like, why? Until I got through the episode. And I was like, oh, she is not. Really, everybody annoyed me this episode with the exception of the OGs, Diamond and Aaron. Everybody got on my nerves a little bit. So let's just jump right on into it.
Yes, please.
Because the mess that this episode was the hot mess. So we leave off where we start where we left off, which is Alexis and Dominique fighting. They're both about 30. They've been talking for, I believe it was 9 or 10 months. It says it on the screen.
6 months.
6 months. 6 months. 6 months. Lord, thank you. This is why there's 2 people here. These 2 people have been talking for 6 months. And they get into an argument that turned physical. And I was happy that they replayed the argument because I did see he did push her. At first, I was like, I thought he was just trying to hold her to calm her down. But then I saw at one point he pushed her and she went from one part of the room to a whole nother room. So I'm like, and it's clear the girl's trying to escape him. She picked up that pot to defend herself, which let me know, because we didn't see that far in the first episode, but she picked up that damn pot. And that let me know personally, like, I don't think that she was faking or doing it for the camera. If you pick up a pot like that, I felt like she really felt the need to defend herself. She don't know them people. What did you think about the fight before we move any further?
What I thought about the fight was I felt horrible that she felt powerless in that moment. And it really bothered me that he lost all composure of him to think that that was okay. And this lets me know that this is not the first woman he's put his hands on, because that looks way too familiar. And I hated how he was still trying to put the blame on her. If she hadn't have did this, I wouldn't have did that. And if she hadn't have said this, I wouldn't have said that. And it was like, so because of some words and because you felt disrespected, instead of collecting yourself, going to the side and saying, "Hey, look, what you did, I felt disrespected. We're trying to make this work. Obviously, we're probably intoxicated. Let's sleep this off and talk about this tomorrow," and walked away.
Mm.
It is not people who have self-awareness knows how to do that. He's not self-aware and neither is she. But at the end of the day, that does not dismiss the fact that he should have never put his hands on that woman and then escalated it even more to where she had to resort into picking up a pot because she felt powerless in that moment against this bigger man.
Mm.
Crazy to me. This was the most insane, and it reminded me of when, like, Love and Hip Hop, before they got all the security, how the fights would be there for a minute before someone intervened. This is what
Yeah.
this reminded me of, because I
Yeah.
don't think the producers or directors knew that it would get this far.
Yeah, I don't think they did either. I did notice that cameraman just
Kept filming.
yeah, and the thing I want people to understand is like the cast members in the house, though the gentleman did try to do something to intervene. If they're the cast members, it's not their job to. I really want the cast and the crew to get better at doing the right thing, even if it means stepping outside and doing something that's not within your job description. And I think a good example of that, of like a really dramatic one, would be the Quiet on the Set documentary that came out. All the crew members that were aware of the inappropriate activity and behaviors going on who don't say anything until they're paid to do a documentary. So, I don't know. The crew needed to do more, but I'm glad James also brought up the fact that Dominique, he did not take any responsibility. You can't he literally blames it on her and kept going back to the issue of her flirting and all of this stuff, never acknowledging that he pushed her, even in the moment when we're watching the fallout of the fight. So what ends up happening is production sends Dominique to a hotel for the night. I was like, ain't this some old school real world type bad girls club type energy from back in the day? But I think it was the right thing to do. They were way too hyped up. There was alcohol involved, so I think it would have been difficult to calm each other down. And in addition to that, it's a liability probably for the network. So they do send him home for the night. I think it was the right thing. Do you think that was the right thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because how would they continue forward?
Exactly. Yeah. And then my thing too is, how do y'all why cast members? To all of the cast members, I don't know if y'all will see this because you're probably looking at YouTubers with a little more, subscribers and things like that. My channel's still growing. We're more so popular too with the music reviews and stuff. But if they see this, why are y'all in the comments, bro? The worst thing you can do as cast members on the show, or when you have fame or some type of, status, being known, notoriety, whatever the hell you want to call it. You are now a public figure. Okay. And the worst thing you can do, if you had an agent, if you had a publicist, an attorney, or someone in your life with common sense, the worst thing you could do is be in the comments. I saw some of them in the comments of Shayna_MCD. That is somebody who we are familiar with on my channel as well as on James's channel, which you can subscribe to. It is on the screen. But y'all defending yourselves in the comments don't make it no better. Cast members commenting about other cast members, even if it's agreeing with us, it just looks unprofessional, a little bit thirsty. Just sit back, enjoy your moment. Y'all don't got to get in every creator's comments and be doing all that stuff. The fact that we here reporting on you is a good thing, but I don't want to deal with that. I won't respond. So just let you know. Anywho, moving on. The fight is basically a hot mess. We then see Josh and Shay. We go a snippet to them. And apparently their first night was good. And she says that their chemistry is strong. Again, and I will get into this later. And James said it the first time. There is something off with this couple. They've been together for 12 years. Never met. But he has a 3-year-old. 3 is smaller than 12 for those who are not mathematically inclined. So I'm just like, if y'all have been together for 12 years and they're not trying to figure it out, like they know what it is, they want to be together, then how you making babies with somebody else, even if you're not official, if you claim to love her and want to be together, like, then you're not going to do that. So it's just a very strange thing, but they say their chemistry is strong and things are going well for them. We will come back to them though. We will
Yes,
come
please.
back because there's a lot that we have to do there. Aaron H. There are several Aaron H's or Aarons on this doggone show, which drives me crazy. But Aaron H is the one who's with Diamond. This would be top right corner, 51-year-old dude. He brings up to Alexis that Dominique getting physical is a big no-no. He explains that he himself was in an abusive relationship, which I appreciated because I feel like a lot of straight men specifically don't speak about domestic violence when it happens to them from a straight woman. And I also feel like people in the gay and lesbian communities, they don't really speak about it either, I've noticed. Just
Well, let me kind of put inference on why he said it, because he's grown. He's 51. He's lived life. That's nothing to be ashamed of. See, the problem with people who are younger, especially men, they're shamed because they know one of their, which when we get to Chris, I'm going to bring this up again, but they're really worried about what their friends, mainly their guy friends or close friends, their cousins, are going to think being in that situation that you got beat up by. It's their ego. But when we get to Chris, I'm going to save this because when we get to Chris, I'm going to rebring this back up. So when we get to Chris and Sandia, let me know because I'm going to rebring that up.
Yeah, but yeah, Aaron H, he definitely dropped wisdom on Alexis to where she broke down in tears. I think what he said helped her to realize, like, oh snap, this did just happen. There is a such thing as going into a state of shock, especially when people are in situations of violence of any sort, because it's like you can, in the moment, it's fight or flight. It's a literal thing that happens in your brain. But then once all of that is calmed down, then you have to process what happens. And that's usually when that starts. And I think a lot of people forget that unless they're trained or have been through it, which is okay. But I was glad that there were some older people there because, like he said, he has a daughter her age, to kind of like come in and give her that like parental need, if that makes sense. So good job to you, Aaron H, for doing that. But I'm still looking at you with the side eye, bro. I'm still looking at you with the side eye. We will come back to them. But she says she's not going to talk to him again. This is what Alexis says. So Taronda comes in. This is the host of the show. And she pulls Alexis aside to talk to her, and Alexis explains to her version of what happened and how she feels. So Alexis didn't seem to tell any lies or go further from what happened. What she said actually matched what we saw. So I'm not going to get too much into that since we already watched it. But where I got irritated with the OWN network, they had this man record a video, put him and said video onto a laptop, brought the laptop to Portia from Empire, and had her show it to this woman after she explained that she is traumatized, a little bit scared, does not feel safe around him, and does not want to be with him and will not be talking to him. So then she says, oh, okay, well, here's a laptop. And there's a video on there. There's a message from him on there. What the heck? Let me just tell y'all what was on the video, and then we'll comment on the opinion.
Yes, please hurry. Yes, hurry to do that, I have to get this off my chest.
That they put him on that laptop. But Dominique basically apologizes to Alexis for, well, he didn't really specify what he apologized for. I did peep that, and I'm big on apologies, so I'm going to point that out. But he did apologize for things getting too crazy. He blamed it on alcohol, and then he had the audacity to ask this young woman if they could just sweep it under the rug and, you know, continue doing what they was doing because he don't really think it was that deep. If it wasn't that deep, Dominique, then why apologize? Because if something's not that deep, that means it don't need an apology. You're literally contradicting yourself. But basically, Taronda explains there's a no-touching policy in the house. And at the end of the day, even though a man should never put his hands on a woman, she didn't touch him she was defending herself. And it makes sense because this is a show about couples. So with him not there, there's no purpose. So they do both get sent home. How did you feel about all of that, especially the laptop and what these doggone producers did with that?
Own network in your call center. I thought it was irresponsible for none of y'all to review what he said and honestly not say, okay, there's no accountability and realize that we're showing this to this person. So you really think this is sufficient after you have put your hands and got physically aggressive with her? You think that this apology is sufficient? You didn't apologize about putting your hands on her. And that's why you're in this predicament now. On network, y'all, because you guys made that young lady feel like there was no validation in her pain from being physically assaulted. Taronda did slightly, but it wasn't enough for me. This woman didn't come on this show to be the entertainment aspect of y'all having a fight here and then sending her home without the proper apology. I'm not saying you're accountable for his words. What I'm saying is that to me, I would have appreciated more if the actual producer of the show would have came out with Taronda and said, look, we apologize for one, having to air this because this is going to air. And two, you're going to have to relive this. And three, that he didn't provide you with a proper apology for getting physical with you because it's unacceptable under all circumstances that we have here. I am upset that no producer publicly did that.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I am.
All we got was a little disclaimer at the end.
Yeah.
Really should have been played at the beginning.
Right. It should have been played right after this went to commercial. It should have been played right there. Because to me, I had forgot that happened when we got, because it was so much in this one episode that we had to move on to even more frantic errors in these couples. So yeah, I didn't like it at all, and I thought it was irresponsible on network to really tell him, like, you really think this is sufficient? Like, you really not sorry for putting your hands on this woman?
They usually they try to coax them into that, but they didn't do it. But I don't think the network, based on what I see, like keeping it 100, I don't think that the network was expecting something like this to happen. And it seems like this is a show that was done with a very, very thin budget. And I'm not trying to be shady. I'm just keeping it real. You can tell if you pay attention to what you watch, you can tell when there's a big budget and when there's not. You just can. But basically, they end up, they're sent home. So Brandon, we see him before they go home. We see Brandon discussing his children, and he really does light up when he talks about his kids. And I just wanted to point that out because I am totally here for fathers, especially Black fathers. And I think that that's a wonderful thing. And you can see that he values a father. Now, this is an important thing. We're going to move on, but this is an important thing to remember. Sienna says while chilling with him, like she's open to the idea, and we've heard her say this before, to moving out to Florida with him. She's open to that, but she says she wants to make time so that she can visit him. Keep that in mind because they showed us that for a reason, and then we move on. So we move on and see Alexis say goodbye to the cast. Bye, Alexis. Because I believe the last show I saw you on, you acted a doggone fool. And Millicent, I believe I've seen her somewhere too.
I can't pick her out of a line. Like, I don't know. She did look familiar, but to me, her and someone else looked very familiar, and I could not put I want to say it was Joanna. I do. For some reason, I've seen her somewhere too.
She looks familiar. I think a lot of these people are people who we have seen on reality shows before. Maybe not the biggest ones, but we've seen them on reality TV or YouTube, maybe to some capacity. And now they are here. I don't know. But she says goodbye to the cast. This is what says a lot about Dominique. He's in comments trying to defend himself and on the internet trying to defend himself. And to me, it makes him look even more guilty knowing that he went home literally at the beginning of the second episode and went there for more than a day. He didn't even last the whole day. He couldn't even sleep in the bed before he was sent home. So the fact that you're commenting when you could have easily been like, the world will forget about me because I'm only in the first episode, lets me know that he knows he's guilty. But he says it's unfortunate what happened between him and Alexis, and he's still going to be talking to women online. I was like, really, dude? Okay.
Once again,
Anybody?
no remorse, no nothing, not saying,
Nothing.
I apologize because I don't want to have the depiction of myself that I'm a physically abusive man. None of that. That
Nothing.
just, I'm going to be talking about, okay. Like,
I also want to
ladies.
point out, we said that this wouldn't last. We said that this
Oh,
would
yeah,
be
I already knew it
toxic
wasn't.
as you
Yes.
know what. It's
I knew from the moment the first comment he made about her misrepresenting herself, I was like, this ain't gonna last. Because that's all it is. It's all about image.
yep.
It's all
Yep.
about image for you. It's not about who she is as a person and what she could bring to your life to fundamentally make it somewhat, level. It's about, she cute, she, that body right. And like you said, when a woman got a fat ass, I must say that's the ignorance. That's the ignorance right there. And so yeah, it didn't surprise me at all. He left exactly how I thought he was going to leave.
Yep. Yep. He sure did. He sure did. So that's the end of them. Goodbye. Do better. I have a
Wish we
feeling
could put
that
an X right there, right on their picture.
I wish I could. I wish I could, but I'm too lazy to make them presentations to put up in. So. But Lord, goodbye to them. I really don't even know why OWN is keeping them on like the promo and stuff like that, just because it was so little time. But moving on, we're gonna get to Sandia and Chris. They are going to discuss all the alarming things that Mr. Chris has said. Now, Sandia and Chris have been talking the least amount of time, only about 3 months. They are not in a relationship. They are just talking, trying to figure out if they want to be together. I just want to say this real fast. I feel like when people do that, like if you have to do all of that to know if you can be with somebody, maybe they're not that person, but we will see. But the things that he said, to remind anybody who didn't watch the episode or forgot, he was talking about he dates women. He's the type of guy who goes ghost on women after he sleeps with them. He don't trust no bride, basically making himself sound like a player and all this extra stuff. He not looking for a relationship, even though he's on a show about relationships and dating. And it seemed like he did all of this when he was around the boys. So I couldn't tell if it was genuine or if he's just one of those guys that feel like he got to keep up with the Joneses.
Mm-hmm.
We will figure it out.
Oh no,
But
we gone because I already know what it is. So get to the argument, and then I'm gonna tell you exactly what it
let
is.
Sandia know that he never wanted to flirt with anybody's girl because she's concerned that he's making comments about that. Which technically he didn't when they played it back, but he was talking in a way that's like he's single and he could have whoever and don't care if he happens to sleep with someone's woman. So this is where he starts gaslighting her, manipulating the things that she's trying to say, all the extra stuff. He should be apologizing to Sandia, but instead, in my opinion, he was disrespecting her. And I was actually happy to see her aware of it. And she did try to speak up for herself, to where she did get him to say he's there to build trust with her, because she's mad that he made a comment that he don't trust women. And she's like, well, if you don't trust women, then what the hell are you doing here with me trying to build something? And he claims he wants to build trust with Sandia. But the way he's moving and the things that he said, really, really just not right, and not the things that you would do to build trust. But he also says, which I think is a red flag, I am not going to change who I am for you the same way I wouldn't expect you to change who you are for me. That is the classic. I don't know how many times I've had friends.
Ladies, let me explain something
That.
to you. Ladies, let me explain something. And men too. When a man tells you that is your red flag for you to get up and leave the relationship where it is.
Absolutely.
That is exactly when you need to get up and leave the relationship where it is. When a man tells you that, because that is the warning. That's the warning right there. And it took me to my last relationship to understand that. So are we done with this? Can I interject or?
I'm gonna just explain what happened throughout the scene. So he's bothered by her being emotional. That statement is a red flag. Somehow they make peace when she says, I just don't want to look bad. And he makes a little joke and they somehow resolve it, but he does make it clear he's only there for her. That's all that happened. I don't have much to say. I feel like when he does what he said, what she heard, she was meant to hear that. And what he said and what she heard is true. And even if it's not true, I don't think that he is the person for her, because I could tell you this. If a man like you, even if he's not in love with you, if he like you, he not gonna go playing you down and making you seem like something that you're not, or playing the connection that you have, or playing down what his intentions are, or what your intentions are with each other. He not gonna do that. And who wants a man that feels like he has to boast and act like something he's not just because he's in front of his partners? So
You
that's
literally
my
took it.
take.
Yes, you literally took the words right out of my mouth, because the ladies get confused by this, and he did a really good job mind fucking her, because he didn't even. It wasn't even what he was saying, and what she was talking about wasn't even what it was. So, ladies, let me explain something to you. What Mr. Chris did was trying to make himself impressionable in front of the very men that are in this house by saying those sly remarks, because he's probably used to doing that at home. So he wants the men to think that he's cool. It's all about impressing the men. Black men do this all the time. They do it all the time if they're not self-aware, and they're taught to do it at a very young age. You want to make yourself look cool because you're trying to impress your father, you're trying to impress your uncle, you're trying to impress your cousins. That never leaves their mindset. They're trained to do it, and it never leaves them. Sandia did not have those words exactly to say that, because she's probably unaware that men do that. A lot of women are unaware that men do this. But I'm telling y'all, men do this. And what they will do when you start to have a problem with what they say, it's not what they're saying. I need you ladies to hear this. It's not about him doing that, because I don't believe he does that. I don't believe he sleeps with women and leaves. I don't believe that at all. I think that is a very good ego facade that he is feeding to this man, because he thinks that that's what they'll like. You ladies have to understand that's not what the problem is. That is the problem, what I'm telling you. And if she would have said, you're just trying to impress these men, and it's ridiculous, because how old are you at the end of the day, where their
That's what I
opinions
wanted
matter?
her to say. That's what I
Yes,
wanted
but
her
because she didn't have the words, and I think that's because, well, I don't even say it's because she's foreign. I wouldn't even say that, because a lot of even American women don't even know this, or they know it, but they're scared to bring it up because they're afraid they're going to crush his ego. Which, if he was a man, it wouldn't matter what you say; he would just take it on the chin,
I don't think
because it's
she's
true.
afraid. I think the ego is a small part. I also think she seems the most uncomfortable just in general in
No,
front of
I
the
really think
camera.
she didn't know. I really think she didn't have the words and the knowledge. I really do, because when she was bringing up what he said in the conversation, and as I said, it had nothing to do with what he said in the conversation. It was the action behind what he said, and what his intention was to say that. It had nothing to do with, and that's why he did that. Because she opened up the segue when you're talking about how you flirt with all these girls, and he said verbatim, I'm not trying to flirt with anybody's girls here. That's not what she said. But you see how that had little to do with what was going on, and you see how he
Yeah,
diverted
but
the
I
conversation.
still feel like the camera in general is, I feel like she's more worried about that, because she just seems uncomfortable in front of the camera. And I feel like that's going to make her, it's already hard enough for people sometimes to catch small things like that, especially with feelings attached. But then add a camera to someone, the one person it seems who hasn't been on reality TV. I think she's a little, because she said it, I just don't want you to make me look bad. So I think she's a little too concerned about
I
how
think that
the camera
happened
looks.
because of how the conversation went. I think that that's how that went. Because here's the thing: I don't feel like he has problem trusting women. I don't. I feel like that was also some bullshit. Because if you had a problem trusting women, you wouldn't bring your ass to the show.
Oh
Unless you
no,
try
we
to
know
promote
that
something.
was BS. I'm talking about specifically Sandia, like even separate from the
Yeah,
relationship.
but that's
She
what
just
happened.
seems uncomfortable being on
No, I
camera.
can agree with that.
And it
Yeah,
seems like it's going to impact everything that she says, how she looks at stuff. It's probably all of those things too. But some people just don't do well on TV. And no shade to you, Sandia. It seems like she's just like nervous and like genuinely concerned about looking bad. But at the same
maybe, because
time,
there's scenes in here that made me feel like she wasn't nervous at all. I just think she just didn't have the words to really confront what that issue was. And she says, "Don't make me look crazy," because I think that that's tied to her image. Because now he didn't divert it, it confused the hell out of you to where now you feel stupid for even bringing this conversation up in the beginning. I feel like that's really what she meant by that. Is don't make me look stupid. Like, don't make me look crazy. And I think that that's how that conversation, because it came off that she was jealous. if we really if we really didn't dissect this conversation and just played it out, I think her concern was looking like she was jealous of him having that conversation and saying how he flirts with other women, because then that means she would have to compete. And she shouldn't have to, because this is her man that she's already on the TV show with. So what does she need to compete for? So that to me just seems like the conversation was trying to divert her to make her come off as she was jealous. And I think that that's how she felt internally.
But the only reason you'd be concerned about looking jealous is if other people and cameras is around. Sandia needs to get comfortable and start speaking
No,
up.
she needs
I
to,
don't like
yeah.
people do this, especially at the age of all of these cast members. They're all 30 plus. Speak up. I mean, you're
Well,
not
here's the
going to
thing, and that's another thing.
know.
They need a curator in there. They need someone to observe all of them and have conversations with them so they understand what, because they don't know each other. Let's keep it clear.
Yeah.
They do not know each other. So having a third party observe you guys to bring out certain behaviors that you're not catching because you're at first impression mode right now. So you're not catching everything. The thing about Dominique and Alexis, there's no way they would have had a first impression that that man was abusive. There's no way that would have come off, even though we clearly can see it being the third eye looking at it. You get what I'm saying? So I would.
Yes and no. I think with him it was clear, but you know,
well, we weren't in the moment, so
yeah. I feel like when you're, how are you so jealous with somebody you only talk to on the phone? Like little things like that, I feel like should give
because
it
it was the conversation. It was because he diverted the conversation to what was said. You have to understand that's the manipulation and that's the mind fuck. Because
No,
you're talking about
Dominique.
not
Chris.
that part. Oh,
not Chris at all. I said with Dominique, it was, to me, it was clear that he would be abusive just on the
no,
little
to
things that she
me,
was saying.
yeah, to me, he's an attention seeker, and that's really what it is. He wants
well,
the
yeah,
attention to be all on him. So I get what you're saying about him. Yeah, it was the attention. He didn't want her to have eyes for anybody or notice any small little thing because that takes the attention off of it being on him. He's an attention whore, and when a woman doesn't give you to me, this gives me your mama spoiled you and made you feel like because you were, because unfortunately, colorism is such a huge thing in this country. When you're light skinned and everything, you are so beautiful, especially if you have a dark skinned mother or even a white mother. Oh my God, you have this most prettiest skin. You're just so adorable, and everybody has to treat you and appreciate you. My eyes are only on you. I guarantee you that's what his life is like. I guarantee you, because that's how they act. They're acting trained to think that they are prettier than the person they're with. So yeah.
He's an asshole either way.
Yeah.
I really hope she learns. And this will teach y'all. Sometimes getting your body done and having the best makeup, doing all those things, it might sometimes unintentionally attract the wrong attention. Because I guarantee if she was just, regular pretty chick, he may not have wanted or looked into her.
And before we move on from Sandy and Chris, I want to say one last thing. Ladies, when a man tries to mind fuck the conversation, because men do that, it's your job to bring it back and say, we didn't say that. Let's bring the conversation. You have to center. Men have to be centered in order for you to get your point across. They have to be centered. Men's mind goes a whole bunch of different ways because they're taught, once again, that they have to impress everybody around them, including women. So when you center them back, say, no, you're diverting the conversation. That's not what we're talking about. We are talking about this. And I think, as I said, she had the words, she would have nailed it. She didn't have the words and was not trained in the mind to really say what the problem was. And because he's easy, you could tell he's a manipulator. So that's why I was like, yeah, she didn't have the words, poor baby. But yeah, ladies, you have to center men back and bring them back down to reality, because that's how that works.
So Joanna talks about not getting into the hot tub because they move on, and apparently these two are fine now. And Joanna decides that she doesn't want to get into the hot tub, and all the couples are getting into the hot tub. She and Aaron J just do not communicate whatsoever. I personally don't think that a woman is his soulmate. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm not judging him. I don't think anything is wrong with it, but he gives
So
I
let's
just
back up. No, let's back up what you're saying because how you feel is valid. Let's back up the fact that when Alexis was leaving the house and Brandon gave her a hug, instead of him waiting for her to hug him, he joins in on the hugs and lays his head on Brandon's shoulder. That was obvious point number one. Number two, when what is the couple, the light skinned couple underneath Alexis and Diamond? What is his name again? Greg? Am I
Millie and
saying?
Greg, yeah.
Okay, when Greg stripped down and to get into that hot tub, he said, "Ooh, you got the Michael B. Jordan
Yep.
abs." And I was like, "Oh, okay, so there goes strike number two. You're not far off, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
You're
it's
not
just that
far off."
community like attacks people for anything. I'm not saying that him potentially seeming that way or trying to like lean into stereotypes, but there are certain characteristics that straight people have. There are certain characteristics and like little mannerisms that gay people have, and the same for people who are non-binary, things of that nature. But he definitely aligns with characteristics not of someone who is heterosexual, is what I'm trying to say. And nothing's
And
wrong with
that's
it.
your opinion, and that's your opinion, and you're entitled to it. Don't let nobody tell. Because guys, let me explain something. The reason why I did what I did was to give you guys evidence and proof that this is not somebody who is doing this out of a bias. This is strictly based on his actions in the home
Yeah.
on camera. We can't make this up. We didn't put anything in there. I have never seen a man going into a hug with two other people and put his head on the other man's shoulder like that when he's not the one leaving the house.
And the
She
comment
is.
on the body, like if I've
The
seen
comment
dudes
on,
say
yes.
like, "Oh, dude, you've got dad bod," like that, but nothing. Michael B. Jordan is
I don't
fine.
even comment on body. Like, who cares? Like, that ain't none of your business.
I like,
But
but
he
I'm
was
just
so
like,
specific.
it
No,
was
he was
very
just it was
specific.
very specific to Michael B. Jordan.
Who is
And I
fine?
get it. And yeah, and that's what I said. I get it. Yeah, me too. Yeah, I get it. That's why I was like, no, that was way too specific. If he would have just said, I see you work out, cool, man, we should hit the gym, that would have been different. Then I wouldn't even have thought twice. But you were specific on the abs and have a reference to somebody who constantly works out. Sorry, no. I
Yes,
agree with you.
I feel like Joanna senses this. She's not really interested in getting in the hot tub with him. If they're in the hot tub, Aaron J, this is the other thing that gave me a red flag. He tried to play her not being in the hot tub or wanted to come in it off as like, oh shit, try to get that hair wet. You don't get your hair wet in the hot tub. It might steam up a little bit, but you don't have to get your hair wet. That's one. And then after that don't work, he tries to play it off as like, oh, I hate dating somebody who clingy. And the one thing I really like about her is she not clingy. Y'all don't communicate. Like it's one thing to not be clingy. Like I feel like I'm not a clingy spouse. If my partner wants to go and do what he does, I don't care. He will tell y'all, he will back me up. I'm always that chick that's chill. There is a lot of trust in my relationship though, which I think helps, but I'm not clingy like that. But at the same time, we spend time together. And when we are in the same room, or even if we're in passing in the house doing separate things, there's like a form of affection. We can't help but to acknowledge each other. Like these people are not acknowledging each other. And I'm not just talking about physical affection. There's no cute little eye looks or, a wink or I don't know, a smack at the butt, a grab at the balls, something. There's nothing. She's in her space. He's in his space. And I think she senses something within him, but don't want to say it, which I don't blame her for. But there's no connection with these two.
And you know what? Honestly, I get because on national TV, she is playing it safe by not pointing out the obvious. But at the end of the day, these are, if I'm supposed to be with you and we've been dating for, what does that say, 9 months?
Yep.
And I am sensing something that is not right, I am going to question it. I am sorry. I am going to question why the physical nature of our relationship, because that's what changed, is now we're physical. We see each other now. We're in the same communion. Why is this not cohabitating in the way our conversations do? I'm questioning that. Why are you making references? And well, she probably don't know about the references. We do because we see it on camera. But I'm gonna say this: like, why is there a lack of physical contact?
Listen, most men, they don't have to know you to be trying to touch you and do stuff like. And I think a lot of women
Right.
will agree. You don't even got to look like Beyonce. You could look like the roach in your next door neighbor's kitchen. Okay. And there will still be a man somewhere that's going to be affectionate. So it's not just, he's trying to play it off as like, oh, Joanna is just not clingy and stuff like that. But I'm like, hey, bro, like you're not really making any moves either.
And then the thing about it is, why aren't you questioning? Why there's
Right.
no,
Why don't
intent
you
of seeing
care?
about your being. Like that's really what you need to boil it down to, is why is there no sensibility of caring about why she's not worried about your being if this is the first time in 9 months that you're actually together? That's what the red flag is. And I'm not saying you have to be Josh and be all up on shit. I'm not saying that. But there needs to be some middle ground, because with everybody else, there is some middle ground. With y'all
Yeah.
two, there is nothing. It's like two best friends got on camera and was like, okay, we're gonna play it off like we're a couple, but we're really not.
Yeah, that's the best way to explain it. And I think that's the really, even Dominique and Alexis before they went, even with his like, there was some type of like spark energy, and there's nothing there. So we're gonna come back to them actually, but come on my first own network show to recap. Okay, I'm only watching this network because James had me watching Bell Collective, which sent me on a rabbit hole of OWN TV. But I'm thinking this looks interesting, but I feel like Aaron and Joanna are the two that should not have been cast. But moving on, the group goes to meet the host, Taronda, and she explains basically that the point of this show and what they will be doing, which I feel like we could have got that a little more in the first episode, is they are going to go on a series of dates and activities with their partners, some as a group, some individually. And after these exercises and different activities that they do at the end of the show, the goal is for these people to decide if they want to actually be together in the world outside of this and make it work now that they have met. They also let us know that there's going to be something called a boom boom room, which if y'all don't know what the boom boom room is, I don't know what to tell you. I can only say so much on YouTube, but a room for adult activity and pleasure. We are all grown, so hey, I think that's realistic. I mean, is it one room? Because I mean, are they changing the sheets with each stay? What's going on? Because you got to think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I took it as one room, and to me, that's unacceptable, considering the fact that all 7 of these women had to share a room. And then the simple fact is, if y'all were going, that's why I said they all should have had their own individual living quarters. And you should have got them 2 twin beds. And if they felt like they wanted to be in one bed, they could just push those motherfuckers together and make one bed. And then there you go. We didn't have to do all of this where there's only one room that they all have to share. That's nasty.
Yeah.
Because I get we changed the sheets, but that is still disgusting. I'm not going to
built a tent outside of the mansion that y'all rented for this show and put production in the tent, brought a trailer onto the property.
Brought a trailer, yep.
But because I feel like they're using the other rooms in the house for other stuff.
Because how is it supposed to be successful intimacy wise if there's not a safe space for them to do it other than the one room?
Listen,
they each should have had their own
couples like Shay and Josh. Listen, that's me and Jody Joe.
They found the closet or a bathroom or something.
The shower, the closet.
They did something because they didn't waste no time. They already got it.
Really got a connection with your partner. Like I would have been like, okay, babe, we sharing a room. Because the men got
exactly. They got their own room and everything. Look, they found a way to make it work. And that's why I'm saying something tells me they have met before. I don't know why I get that feeling that they are.
Well, I'm gonna comment on that some more because there were a lot of dead giveaways that they have. But after they explain these events, the first game that they play is a game that has to do with Kama Sutra. It's supposed to be an effort to teach the couples to communicate and to discover boundaries and all those things about each other. So what's going to happen is they'll go up there. Each couple will get 2 cards. Each card will have a Kama Sutra position on it, and they're supposed to sit in that position and learn something of each other. Now, the issue I had with this is some people have positions where they could look at each other, and some people just had them nasty positions where usually you're in them after you already been going a few rounds and you can't see the person, but you can feel them, if that makes sense. The goal for them to be able to like talk to each other. I think Sandia and Chris were the only ones who went and probably did the activity in a way that was appropriate or would make sense.
Yes.
They had Balancing Act and Lotus Blossom. Lotus Blossom, I'm not going to explain Balancing Act because the video will never be monetized, but Lotus Blossom is basically sitting on your partner, wrapping your legs around them, sitting on your partner, almost
which
like
is my favorite form of intimacy that I never got in my last relationship. So it really, when I was like, oh my gosh, I love that, because usually I don't date anyone shorter than me, but the problem is that I did this time, and so I knew that was never going to happen. But yes, but yes, I actually love that, and I actually love that for them. I felt like they should have did that for everybody. That one position
that's
for everybody.
honestly that's the thing, because no one else did that. They were able to look at each other and express like what they feel or what they were thinking. I was happy to see Chris was like, okay, let me just do the right thing and act right. But I don't think anyone else really did this correctly. Because Shay and Josh go next. They basically admit they've already had sex and done some of the positions. They lay into the curved angle pose, and that's about it, because he behind her. She can't see him, no eye contact. Then we move on to Joanna and Aaron J. Here we go.
Those were weird. That was weird.
They get the most intimate poses, which I'm a firm believer in the universe setting things up a certain way. Okay. Because the couples who have intimacy and the couples who done slept together already done had poses that were, simple. You didn't have to do too much in front of other people. The people who can't even sit in a hot tub together for 5 minutes are the ones who got the poses that look like some stuff. Hi, Shayna.
Hi, Shayna.
My YouTube has been tripping, you guys. Earlier, my YouTube told me I wasn't logged in. I can't tell if I don't know what's going on right now. So I'm just glad to see someone's here. Anywho, but yeah, the positions were like, I don't know. Joanna and Aaron J, it's clear there's no sexual chemistry. They get a super intimate pose. They get into the pose, and the way that he even sat on top of her was awkward. It was just awkward. She said, I didn't watch yet.
Oh, Shayna, you got to watch. I love you got to watch. And when I tell you this episode was crazy, like OWN has it right. I had to go on OWN's website and watch it. It was way too crazy. So yes, I'll be looking out for your live, because I'm going to go on your and I'm going to be in your comments.
I'm enjoying hers as well, because
yes.
It's fun to talk about it. When you gotta lead it, I gotta watch my notes and make sure I'm staying on track. So it's always fun to join other creators' lives where I don't have to do the work. Those two Joanna and Aaron J had zero chemistry. They could not pretend to want to sleep together. They could not pretend. Let me tell y'all, the position that they was in, if that was me and my spouse, they would have had to blur and bleep and all types of things, because if you're with somebody that you actually love, and I'm attracted to my man a lot. So, there should be some sort of type of lust, a breath, something. They just sat there.
I would have been in trouble too.
Right.
I would have been in trouble as well, because that wouldn't have happened easily. Like, even though I wanted to be in the position that Sandy and Chris were in, that position that Joanna and Aaron was in, I would have been in trouble. Right then and there, I would have been in trouble, and I would have said, but except you would have been able to see mine versus not being able to see his, is what I'm saying.
And that's the other thing I'm gonna point out, y'all. I just have a feeling about Aaron J. I am not trying to be mean. I am not trying to out him. Please don't cancel me, though I don't have nothing anyway, so you probably won't get far. But like, he just makes my little radar go off for certain things, and this was that. There's no connections. She starts talking about what it could be, but not about him, not focused on him at all, which Aaron H pointed out. But when asked about the connection and what he felt, Aaron gonna say, well, can't you see this poke in my jogging pants? Y'all, I wish I was allowed to like go on and put the show on here for y'all to see. share screen, open up
There
DirecTV,
was no
and
poking
like
those
zoom in.
moves, sir.
Like there was not a damn.
There was nothing. There was nothing, sir. Stop playing with us. There
Why you
was
feel the need
nothing.
to point that out though? Because like all the other men also were in intimate positions as well. None of them felt the need to point out if they got excited. Just because a man is around a woman or doing something intimate doesn't always mean that his tillywhacker is going to come alive. Like that's not all the time what it means. So I don't know. I'm side-eyeing Aaron J.
We all are because that's not making sense.
And Joanna, how do you not? I feel like even talking on the
I feel
phone,
like I feel like she know, but
she has
she ain't.
to.
She's not trying to embarrass this man on national TV,
I feel like
which
she knew
she is.
before this show. I call BS on it because like the way he is, I feel like you can tell and sense certain things through FaceTime and things like that. Like
I don't know. I don't know. I kind of go back and forth with that because I do see what you're saying, but I'm kind of like maybe she couldn't based on because there's only so much you can see. You know, especially like if you're laying down or if you're in like a very strict position where you're not able to move as much, maybe that wasn't evident.
it's just a lot. His speak, his he's smizing in the picture. I can't. But one thing's for sure. Listen, you can be straight, gay, bisexual, all of that. If there's no sexual chemistry, there's no sexual chemistry. If there's no chemistry, there's no chemistry. Chemistry is not just with relationships. Like they don't even barely have chemistry as friends.
Yeah. To
So
me, she just seems annoyed. Like she's like, dang,
yes.
I swiped yes. It's like I swiped yes on the wrong person, wasting my time. Because I have been there. That's why I know. Like to me, I
Oh,
stick specifically with my attraction. I have to because at least I can get that as a positive. Now, if your personality is fucked up, then I'm like, okay, well, then there's the deal breaker. But I cannot go against what I'm highly attracted to. I just cannot do it because the moment I do it, if I fall for you intellectually, then we're going to have a horrible physical relationship. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm very twisted, but it works
that's
for
not
me.
twisted. Psychology says that's normal. Fun fact.
Well, because society has normalized it because not everybody has psychology degrees and taking psychology
Oh
classes.
no, it's based on statistics from society. Most people base
People don't take those courses either.
they do. But no, I took a bunch of them.
No, I said people don't. No, I said people don't take those courses. People
No,
don't
like I'm
understand.
saying that psychology is based on statistics from actual people. So what I'm
Right.
saying is like based on what they've done in their studies and surveys and stuff of people. Most people say when dating, like some people, like a very small amount, will base it on like, oh, personality and that. But most people need to at least be able to be physically attracted to a person first
To
before
what
they go
degree is what
further.
I'm is what I'm going to ask you now. To what degree? Because do you think that she was physically attracted to Aaron J?
No. And that's
Okay,
why I don't believe. That's
that's
why I
my
don't
point.
believe.
That's
I
exactly
don't
my
believe
point.
that these two people
Because what
are
purpose
ever
would she
really.
spend? Because 9 months. What purpose would she have if she was not attracted to him in 9 months? And you looking at him, I would say, if not every day, every other day, or whatever, however that went for 9 months.
These people ain't even had a conversation, so I'm starting to feel like they probably did know each other to some extent outside of this.
I think they
I feel
did
like
too.
the
And
show
yes,
came along probably really early in on them getting to know each other. But girl, there are
to
certain things.
me, I'm gonna have to go back and watch how they met. Because to me, it feels like maybe they knew each other through a circle of friends, and that's how they kind of just started talking. I think they're the Instagram couple. I think I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch this now because I need to see. I need to remember how they met.
Yeah, I think that matters too. Because
Yeah.
so far to me, what I think as a whole, I don't believe that they're even really interested in each other. I think they either wanted to be on TV or
It's given that. It's given that
never
they're
being romantic.
right because they're very odd.
Yeah,
She
it's
does not
all
give me that she's not the affectionate type. She gives me she wants that. And he gives me perpetrating. Is the best way to say it. It's perpetrating. It's perpetrating. There's no way you can convince me. He's given too many telltale signs. Too many
Lord
telltale
help me.
signs. Like, I don't know if he's more attracted to Brandon or Greg.
So Millie and Greg. Because I agree. I'm not going to refute anything you say because I agree with that. I agree with that. That's just my thing though. Like just based on science and what people say, most people try to go off of things based on attraction, and she just seems disappointed with him as a whole in this house and annoyed as you stated. So I don't know with them, but I don't think they'll last either. We predicted Dominique and Alexis would not last. I don't think Joanna and Aaron J will either. Personally, we will see. But Millie and Greg say they have chemistry, and they go next in this Kama Sutra activity. They did have chemistry, but this is another couple I feel like has seen each other before. I don't know
the couple
why.
that live in the same city, right?
Yeah, they both live in LA, and I feel like
Okay.
they've seen each other. I just feel that
You
way.
know what actually gave that away for me is how much they were trying to aid in being the house counselors. That to me kind of gave it away for me, that I feel like, because what I told y'all on the first video, I don't know how these two have lived in the same city, have been talking for 3 years. Yeah, 3 years. And you never crossed paths, not at any point. Because I said he looked like he lived in Canonical Park, and she looked like she lived off of La Brea Miracle Mile. That's where she looked like she lived at. Those places are not far from each other.
Girls that be over there, down to the hair, she looked just like the girls that be over there.
Yeah, exactly. Like she looked like she lived off of Miracle Mile right there. He looked like he lived in Canonical. That's a 35-minute drive, y'all. That is not far. So what I'm saying is, I don't believe that they never crossed paths. And then the way they feed off of being the same person in the house, no, they've met. They've seen each other before. They've like I'm sorry.
They do have chemistry though.
They do, and it's deep.
Activity. It is like
it's like they're the same person. It's weird. And this is where Sienna pissed me off at the end of the episode when it came to these two.
Yeah, she did. We pretty much are about to get into Sienna and them very soon. They were a lot this episode, but Diamond and Aaron go through this little Kama Sutra activity. All right, James has said he thinks they know each other and have seen each other off camera. I can't say too much on Aaron H for personal reasons, but I agree with what James thinks. Here's my issue. When they go for their turn in the Kama Sutra activity, Aaron explains that they have no issue being watched. They get into their position. It's very quick. There's energy and chemistry. It felt like, honestly, they got together and touched on each other like me and my husband would. Like they know each other. They're comfortable touching. He knew where to go, what to do. But here's the part that made me think you guys have met each other, because he said, me and Diamond, we had no problem, being watched. We could be walking down Hollywood Boulevard or whatever, and I'll start sucking her toes if she looked good enough. You literally just told on yourself. Just told on yourself because you used, for those who are good at grammar, the English language that we speak. He literally says, like, in a past tense way, as if this is something that has happened and that he's experienced.
See, yeah. He got me when we like to be watched. Sir, y'all just met yesterday.
So how you like to be watched?
How you like to be watched when there's only been one date?
Exactly.
How did you already get to that conclusion?
Exactly.
That y'all like to be watched, and how can you speak that for her? Because what if she don't like to be watched?
But apparently she was fine with it because she was giggling. I think that they know each other, but probably have been dating long distance for 5 years, and he got a secret or something. But moving on, Millie and Greg speak to each other about wanting to take their time dating. Pretty much Millie wants to take her time. She says she's not worried about what the other couples are doing, and she wants things between the two of them to happen naturally. I'm gonna just let James comment his opinion on it because I was a little bit annoyed with the conversation. I like what she was saying, but something about it just did not seem
something, because once again, as I said it, and I'm gonna say it here again, there's no way that two people who live in the exact same city with a 35-minute commute is has never met in that 3 years. There's no way possible. I don't care how busy you are in LA. I know somebody who got 3 jobs and still made time to see me when I got out there. So at the end of the day, that is weird. And I don't believe it. And they're saying the exact same things. So if you guys had not met, it's because you two have people at home. And y'all were secretive on this app. Because I've
There's
also seen
no
that too.
excuse. Like the couples for production, apologies for interrupting. If you're gonna have a show called The Never Ever Mets of people who have dated people that for years and never met, please, it should automatically be a red flag to production for people living in the same city.
In the same city.
Californians, New York, stuff like, especially in California, like is different here versus in some areas they may stay in their neighborhood in certain areas. I could be in Vallejo today, in Oakland tomorrow, San Francisco tomorrow, Fresno the next day. Sometimes me and Mr. Best go to LA just for the weekend, just because we felt like it. We just drive and come back. So it's very strange that they have not seen each other.
And let me add to that. Also, the time matters too, On. I don't want to see a couple that have dated for 12 years and in the first night already have had sex. Already, the first 2 minutes in already didn't kiss, as if they're already familiar with each other physically. That didn't make sense to me. That, first of all, that was unbelievable. The couple that have been together for 5 years, I don't believe that they have never met, because there is something about the history and the fact that she knows all of this information. It seems like they lost touch when he proposed to that other woman. And that's where I'm calling bullshit on them. And as I said, for the 19th time, Millie and Greg, I know they don't live that far from each other. So we're not gonna act like y'all just pulling the wool over our eyes. The only people that this would fool are people who do not know California, as well as me and Mrs. Best too.
Yep, I agree. I agree.
That's the only people that this is gonna fool, is the people who don't know California well. I can look at them and tell what neighborhoods they live in just based on their demeanors.
And for fun fact, people who work in production and can afford to live in the nicer neighborhoods in Southern California, they don't know California either, because a lot of the people working in Hollywood behind the scenes are people who have come from other states or people who do not leave Southern California. And there's, trust me, like San Diego to LA, totally different. LA to the Bay, totally different. So, it is what it is, but we're going to move on from them too, because I was just like, okay, it's weird that y'all even have to converse about this. But Brandon and Sienna are talking. They're playing pool, and she says that Brandon should move to New York City, and she explains that she's not a fan of Florida. And he is thrown off by this because she had said, and like we said earlier in this live, speaking of this live, like the video, shout out to the replay gang, Thug Life. Thank you for watching. And to those who are here now, thank you. But she says she don't want to be in Florida, even though she already told him that she's open to move if it's that person for her. She changes her mind often and is basically flip-floppy. She's wishy-washy, which I can agree. She seems off though, like mentally. I think she needs to be evaluated personally. But he pretty much lets her know that he feels she's flip-floppy and inconsistent with the things that she says, and it's making it hard for him to know how to move or to take things to the next level. She says to him, it hurts my feelings because you're like the second or third person, which means there's probably a fourth and a fifth, that has said to me that I'm inconsistent. Instead of trying to, I don't know, instead of her feelings being hurt, I feel like she should like learn from it. Like, okay, well, one would think if I keep hearing this, then maybe it applies. It's not saying that we should take everything that everyone says as like, oh, this person said this, I need to change. But if all your relationships are ending because people feel you're inconsistent and wishy-washy, then maybe you're inconsistent and wishy-washy to some extent. And it's okay to look into that. It's called learning from our mistakes. But she don't seem like the type of person who is going to look into that whatsoever. He explains, he being Brandon, he explains to Sienna that her being inconsistent scares him. And her response to that is calling him a bitch. And she says that he is inconsistent because he has kids with multiple women and a failed marriage. And I was like, wait, what? How you want to be with somebody and you're accusing them of being something negative, such as inconsistency, as it relates to how their children got here? That's something you have to be careful with if you want to date him. It just seems a little messy to say. She then moves on to tell the house and the people in the kitchen that he has a history of failed relationships. I was like, oh, Lord. So she just took things from bad to worse, goes in the next room and is talking about all the things that she feels about his relationship, stuff that he should have told them, not stuff she needs to be spreading about his business. And he explains, because he comes in and hears this, that he does take marriage seriously, but he is interrupted by Sienna again, who says that that is bogus and that if he took marriage seriously, that he would still be married. Child, when I say the cast tried to explain to her that her failed relationships are no different or no better than his failed marriage. And another thing I personally feel, until you, Sienna, have gotten into a marriage and found somebody that want to go all the way with you versus you being consistent, don't speak on other people's marriage or failed marriages, because I think it's a big deal to even get married, and it takes a lot for two people to agree to do something like that. And even those who have had failed marriages, that they're not to be shamed, because you don't know what they went through, you don't know why it ended, and in the situation where there are kids involved, it could have been the best thing for the stability of the kids. But long story short, before we get into commenting our opinions, we see Brandon is turned off by the fact that she has referred to him as a bitch, which I think most men would be turned off by that, especially black men. Especially black men. They do not like being called a bitch, especially by a female. And Sienna is then upset that he was expressing his feelings to Millie. She feels like that's him talking about her behind her back. That was a lot. That's pretty much where the episode ends. But we're going to give our opinions because that was a lot. All I can say is she's kooky. Something is wrong. The lights are on and nobody is home. Hot mess express. But I knew something was off based on how she wore her dreadlock crochets. I just knew, like, I just knew that something in her spirit was shuffling or not right. But I don't like what she did. I felt like she attacked his marriage. She attacked his, his choices, saying that it didn't work with the baby mama either. You failed at that too. I just felt like it was a bit low. I would never throw like someone who I'm dating or with past relationships in their face. I don't think that's right. I don't think it's right to throw personal things in people's faces as well. The divorce rate is high, y'all. So stuff happens. Sienna, what do they call it? Emasculated this man. She talked to him all sorts of crazy. I'm not saying she had to she needs to be in the middle of where Sandia and Sienna talk to these men. Neither Sandy needed to speak up more. Sienna needed to speak less and a little more gently. But I didn't like it. And I don't know if he'll be able to move past that. So that's all I'll say. James, how do you feel about the rampage that this woman went on? And it came out of nowhere. She seemed agitated.
I thought it was ridiculous. I thought it was ridiculous. And I thought she ought to be ashamed of herself. So let me first, before I go on my rampage, let me first say, Brandon, I salute you as a man for not going off the rails, keeping your composure, and not taking her personally. I commend you for that. That lets me know that you're a self aware man and that if there's any demise in the relationship, she is the problem. So I want to thank you for that. And thank you for not being an example because what she did was cut to the white meat. And you
Mhm.
held and you stood there and you took it, you observed it, and you realized the wrong in it. And I appreciate that because that is how I am as a person. It's exactly like Brandon. I can observe, I don't take it personal, and I just let it in and I observe what's around me and see what I do not like. Sienna reminds me of my ex. The
Okay.
problem with her, the problem with her, you guys, and I'm being real clear about this, is that she thinks she's perfect. And the
Mhm.
moment that you remind her that she has not, and you say something that someone else told her to remind her she wasn't perfect, then she felt attacked. And that's where the bitch came in because
Mhm.
she felt attacked. How dare you question my perfectness? I know that I'm perfect. You're a bitch for telling me that. I know that I'm perfect. She didn't say that, y'all, but that's what I took it as. She didn't want to be questioned. And what she did to double down on calling her perfect is that she picked out a flaw that he shared with her. She picked out a flaw to prove that he was no better, even though that wasn't even where this conversation was going. But because she's attacked, she wanted to hit him where it hurt, which is to remind him that he had failed relationships and that he wasn't perfect, even though that was never in question. What she did was dangerous. And when women do that, and men too, but when women do that, they mean you know well because the relationship is always going to center around them, which is why she said, I need you to move to New York. Even though they had a conversation of, well, you should look at Florida because we can get a house. Because she was admiring the house that they were in. That's how this conversation started. They were admiring the house and how big it was. And he said, you can get a house like this in Florida. I know where they are. And maybe we should look into that. And she said, okay, yeah, I'll, just let me know when, and I'll make sure we make it happen. That was the conversation. So, where in your mind did you think by telling this man he needs to move to New York, as if y'all didn't have that conversation, that was sufficient, ma'am? I want to know
The
where was that
secondly,
sufficient?
nobody, let me tell you this. Ain't nobody in Florida who's regular interested in giving up that cheap rent and all that sunshine to come to New York.
In a little
She is
cramped ass
she
apartment.
is out of her ever loving mind. She's
Yes,
out of
and
mind.
absolutely. And let me continue because I'm not done yet. I'm going to get into her some more. And then to make matters worse, ma'am, what you did in front of all those strangers is bring up his personal business to then make him look crazy to them. And when it didn't work, then you sat up there and then tried to double down and say, well, if it was me, I would have made sure it worked. Right. Because you're perfect, right? So, ma'am, let me ask you something. If you're perfect, then what the fuck are you doing on the show then?
If you
Why the
perfect, why are you
yes?
getting a
Why are you
relationship in
here?
your early 40s versus
Right.
why ain't you
If
been
you if
found
you have
somebody?
all the fucking answers, then why are you on this app with this man? Why isn't there a slew of men in New York City waiting to take you out? Why do all the same men have the same fucking opinion of you? Instead of you taking that as they're experiencing me this way, okay, so maybe I need to work on that. You're taking it as someone trying to take a dig at your perfection. And that's not what he was doing. He said, we had a conversation. I thought we were on the same page. You jumped your ass on another fucking chapter and completely left me out there in the dark and confused the fuck out of me, is what you did. And then you have the nerve to get mad because he said you were inconsistent. That's what that means. So I'm sorry, ma'am. No, you lost me on this one. You lost me on this one. I see you. I see what it's going to be. Brandon, if I were you, I would take that in and say no. And then also, let me, because she also made mad about this too. When he was talking to Millie, ma'am, you were on the fucking couch talking to Greg. So why is that okay and this is not? Y'all were talking about the same shit.
Separate from that, she went in that, as I explained prior, she went into the kitchen after leaving the pool table to tell them all his business,
Right.
talking to the other men. So that's you talking behind his back, and then he does the same thing. Females like her,
they're dangerous.
dangerous.
They're
And
dangerous.
I knew, because I was like, okay, she has a career, she seems bubbly, all these things. There's got to be something wrong.
No, women like her,
Always
yes,
being
because
too independent.
no, because she's 45 and he's only 35. They're 10 years apart in age. She gets younger men so that way she can always prove that she's smarter than them. But what she's
You are
doing is
probably correct.
yes, no, but what she's doing, she's fucking herself over because at the end of the day, the men you choose have the same intellect as you, meaning they can pick up on the social cues that you drop. And when they call your ass out on it, then that's when you get offended. It's like, that's why I said, she took that as, how dare you question my perfectness, sir? How dare you do that? Well, ma'am, first of all, you need to take a look at yourself because you're attracting these kind of men who can see you. If you wanted somebody dumb, go and get you somebody who has less emotional intelligence. If you wanted somebody
You
like
should have dated Dominique.
right, that's who she should have been with. Because he wouldn't have given a fuck and wouldn't have picked up on that social cue, ma'am. I noticed it right when you opened your mouth in that first conversation. I said, something ain't right about her. Why is she like, okay? And then the next minute you change your whole fucking mind, jump somewhere else. You jump ship, and you know what? And I don't feel sorry for you. Brandon, no one's gonna get mad if you decide to leave this lady. No one's gonna get mad at you. Actually, we might start clapping and jumping up and down because she needs help. She needs help. Like she needs to be on somebody's psychological examinations room, and they need to observe her for 48 hours and give her a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and some juice. Because ain't nobody got time to play with these ladies' games. That shit was sickening.
I
And
want
yet
her
I
on a
might have
14-day hold because no, on a
absolutely.
serious note, I work in a crisis center and do the intake, and she seemed off. If we go backwards to the activity that they did with the Kama Sutra earlier in the episode, when it got to her in Brandon's turn, she chose the activity before he could even have a chance to look at the cards and then sat on him with an attitude out of nowhere. And it seems like that attitude never went away. She acted like she's in a manic state, if I'm being entirely honest.
Well,
And
it's because her you have to understand how she walks. Because I tell you, this is my ex. This is exactly what this was like for me. They walk in the area where they think they're perfect. Everything is perfect for them. They don't make mistakes. They're perfect at every single task they can accomplish. People look at them as perfect. People admire the perfectness. This was the moment, the reason why that activity irritated her, because it was a moment where that was going to be taken from her. And anytime you question someone who is perfect, they break down and they shut down. And that's what she did. She shut down because she had no control over that situation. Because you know what happened? Because guess who called it out? What's her name? Latanya, the host. What was her name? Whoever the host was called it out. And once again, that's challenging her perfectness. Remember how I said, when you challenge the perfectness of that being, they shut down. And now she doesn't want to do it anymore because you could see it. I guarantee you that's why she dates younger men. I guarantee y'all, I tell you, I've lived through this. I know exactly what I'm looking at. Anytime you question that perfectness, they shut down and they don't even want to be bothered anymore. She was done with that exercise the moment that lady called out that imperfect flaw that she had of being in control. Because she's probably been told that too. You're too controlling. And that embarrassed her. And so now she's doing it despite the show, but she didn't want to do that. I guarantee you, if this was the kind of show where she could walk away, she would have.
yeah,
So
I
yeah.
agree. I agree. She definitely seems like somebody who needs to be in control. She wants to look right. Dating younger men, all of that is valid. I think all of that makes sense, and I hope that Brandon moves on because the way he lights up about his kids, he's not going to deal with no woman who is expecting him to up and leave them or expecting him to make his kids uncomfortable and have to fly to New York or move to New York. Like, she doesn't realize that. And that's why I say it's important. Like, I don't think people without kids should date people with kids, but it happens all the time. But if you choose to date someone with kids, you're choosing to not come first if the kids are
Well,
under
you have to choose.
age.
You have to understand the relationship is going to come with conditions that you may have to sacrifice more. And what I mean by sacrifice more mean your time with that person that may have to be sacrificed because he has to give it to the people he now has to raise. You're also
Exactly.
sacrificing the morals you have of you it just being you two because you have to now be an influence on whoever he is because he has to have his kids around you. So no, yeah, it comes with a lot of sacrifices and conditions that I feel like a lot of people are not ready for when they get in relationships because you think it's always going to be about you. And that was another mistake he made because here's the thing. I'm gonna fault him for not asking the right question. I'm sure the conversations were well, but like I tell people, because people ask me, well, you really didn't know your partner when you moved. It's like I was never going to see this. I was never going to see this until I made that move because they were going to show me what they wanted. Because remember, perfect. Everything is perfect. They have their schedules perfect. Everything, the knives are sharp. I'm telling you, it's never going to be that. I have to physically be in it in order for me to reveal it. It's sad because it's a huge risk. But at the same time, there's something that draws you to that person. And I'm gonna be real with you. They share the same intellect, which is why he was able to clock that without even being in her presence 2 days. They share the same intellect. That's what I said. She's stupid because she's not picking the right kind of men that aren't going to be able to see that, and that's what she wants.
Um, I think the stupider part is if you have heard from a bunch of people the same things that has led to relationships not working. She's probably had good connections with people in the past that could have gone somewhere. But the narcissism in her, because let's call it what the hell it is
It is
not
right. I'm trying to be nice about it because she's still a black woman. At the end of the day, I still have to
listen,
be in somewhat
you can still
respectful.
hold each other accountable and holding each other accountable, you could do so with respect. You're not disrespectful at all. That if that ain't narcissism, I don't know what it is. They have to be right, they have to be in charge, they have to have control, and they basically throw big ass fits when they're not. And that's what this woman did. So I what you're saying, yeah, it's like, okay, if you're not willing to change, then this is the type of person you need to find. But on the other end of the spectrum, it's like, girl, it's stupider to be ignoring. These men are literally giving you the answers versus just dipping. I have friends who got dudes who just disappear without giving an explanation. These men like you enough to at least try to say, hey, you're controlling, condescending, so on and so forth. And you just choose to ignore it and not knowing what you want instead of getting mad at that, you being wishy-washy. It's like,
It wasn't
girl,
ignoring. She got offended
well,
because how dare
straight,
you? Yeah,
well, offended, but
yeah, she got offended
getting
because
offended
she
at
questioned her
being
perfectness.
instead of being offended at that, like if your actual goal is love, look beyond yourself, but she can't. We know she can't. So
No,
I don't
they
know.
never
I'm not.
will. They never will. Let me explain something to you. They never will change. She never will change. She's going to be like that until she dies because she's too
Well,
old now to
I don't
change.
like to put stuff like that on people because I like to believe
Because well,
everything
here's the thing. I'm sorry.
mentally healing. But yeah, I mean, as for this
No.
relationship, I don't think she'll change in this
I
relationship.
guarantee. I also want to put this out there too. I guarantee you, the other guys she's dated are just like Brandon.
Probably. She probably
I
hesitated
guarantee you.
because there's not a lot of men who would put up with that.
No, and that's why they leave.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. They're emotionally intelligent enough to pick up on the cues, and so is he. But he's obligated himself to this TV show, so he wants to see it through. But I'm telling you, Brandon, it's not going to change. She is going to be this way. There's no because first of all, there's no therapist there.
Yeah.
So there's no one that's going to pick up and when the one person, the host actually picked up on it, she shut down. And that's her mechanism is she shuts down and no longer wants to be affiliated. That's what they do. Yeah, this
Yeah.
was triggering for watching me because I was with somebody who was just like that.
I think for anybody who's dealt with a person like that, it's extremely triggering because of how much it impacts people, like just really every part of a person's being dealing with people like that. And that's part of the reason I feel like it's not going to work with her and this man. She needs a lot of therapy based on what I saw, but I don't know. We'll see where it goes, you guys. That is all that happened this episode. It looks like next episode we're still going to be dealing with this because she's upset about him talking to Melly. But so far, this show, the idea of it's cool. The amount of drama is okay, but there's those little things they could have done that are better. But we will be back next week. We will be doing these recaps. I'll be doing them on Fridays and Saturdays, whichever day works best for me. This week I did Friday because I have a lot of individual lives. All the shows I was doing individually like to come back at the same time for some reason. So I had to do this today. But I appreciate everybody for tapping in, watching, subscribing to the channel. Let everybody know B3ST Entertainment is here. Music reviews, a space for independent artists to be highlighted, as well as TV reviews and recaps. Be sure to subscribe to James's channel. It is on your screen. Hashtag Watch Your Mouth Reviews. You'll see a bunch of his videos as well. I appreciate everybody for tapping in. Thank you, James, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Next week. The next recap we'll do together will be Summer House, Martha's Vineyard.
Yes, on Monday, and then we'll do an unpopular opinion on Monday.
Yes. But we have made it to the end of the Hot Mess Express. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.